It's that time of year again. The fall time change is less than 2 weeks away. Every year, I start receiving questions about this fall time change in early October, so about a month in advance, because it really gives parents a lot of anxiety. Recently, I even helped a family get their child waking at a normal hour after they had been dealing with a 5 a.m. wake up since the clocks rolled back last fall. Today, I want to help you confidently and easily navigate this fall time change so you are not that person who gets stuck with an insanely early wake up. And I'm also going to share where we currently stand as it relates to the proposed end to switching the clocks twice per year. All of that will get covered. Hi, I'm Allison Edgety, a pediatric sleep and wellness coach and a mom of two. I love to help parents find solutions. This is How Long Till Bedtime. First, I want to dive in on where we stand as it relates to the Sunshine Protection Act. If you're not familiar with the Sunshine Protection Act, this was passed by the Senate in 2021, and it proposed that starting in November of 2023, so about a year from now, we will stick with permanent daylight saving time. So that's what's in the act. That would mean that this upcoming rollback that we're about to have would be our last one. I think a lot of parents were excited about this, but I do think it's important to note that the act needs to be approved by the House and the President. And as far as I can tell, nothing has been done with it since it was referred to the House Subcommittee on Consumer Protection and Commerce back in February of 2021. So, this potential change that got big headlines in the news is just sitting right now. And it's very unclear to me what the likelihood is of it actually coming to fruition. I also want to note that the American Academy of Sleep Medicine has pushed back, and they are recommending that we stick with permanent standard time rather than daylight saving time because standard time is more in line or syncs with our body's more natural rhythm and it syncs with our natural environment. I'm not sure how that pushback or recommendation will come into play as the House reviews this proposal or if they ever do review it and how they may act on it. So while I know a lot of parents are really hoping that this would be the last time that the clocks roll back, I'm not sure how confident we can be about that. But I do have good news. I'm going to share how you can help your child smoothly transition to the new time and how you can avoid getting stuck with those crazy early wake ups. This year, the fall time change is on November 6th, which means the clocks throughout most of the United States are going to roll back an hour at 2 a.m. that morning, Sunday, November 6th. What this means is that children who typically wake, let's say at 6:30 a.m., are going to now wake up Sunday morning at the new 5:30 a.m. This is why the fall time change is often more challenging or frustrating for parents than the spring time change, where we spring forward. But the good news is that I've been guiding my community through this transition for years, and I make it quick and fairly painless. In fact, I took a poll of my Instagram followers, and the vast majority of them said that the fall time change hasn't been an issue. And that makes me really happy because that means they're probably sticking to my plan and less is more and it's going well. So I look forward to helping you be in that camp this year if you've previously struggled. Before I share how I recommend you help your child through this transition, I want to strongly encourage you to ignore the advice out there that's telling you to gradually transition your child during the week or two prior to the change or prior to the rollback. I don't recommend taking this approach because it can quickly throw your child's circadian rhythm off. It's important to remember that there are two big drivers that help our child maintain a consistent circadian rhythm. One is natural light, and the other is the rhythm of their day. The rhythm would be when they eat the meals, when they go to daycare or school, when they nap, when they get home, when they go to bed, etc. If you start slightly tinkering with their sleep schedule, so that part of the rhythm before the time change, and the rest of their rhythm hasn't shifted, so their meal times aren't changing, the time that you leave the house to drop them off at daycare or school isn't changing, the time that you get home at the end of the day and feed dinner probably isn't shifting that much, you're actually more likely to throw them off their natural ideal sleep rhythm because their body is going to be like, what is happening? Why is part of this rhythm changing, but the daylight isn't changing and other aspects of this rhythm aren't changing? I also think it's worth noting that I find that the gradual transition approach is most disruptive to our more sensitive children because they're the ones that are going to be most easily thrown off of their natural rhythm. This can result in your child's sleep becoming kind of messy, with them getting less than the ideal amount, with the naps shortening, potentially having night wakings or early wakings, or just generally carrying sleep debt into the time change, which is less than ideal and can result in those early morning wakings being even more likely. So, what should you do? I want you to do nothing in advance of November 6th. And then I want you to make some small adjustments on Sunday, November 6th, after the time change has already happened. And I want this whole transition to be behind you in 24 to 48 hours. So, how exactly do I want you to do that? On Saturday night, November 5th, you're going to put your child to bed and put yourself to bed at a normal time. Putting yourself to bed at a normal time is actually a really important piece of this, you guys, to help you not get frustrated. Because I know back in the pre-kids days, we all thought this time change was awesome. You got extra time to sleep. But let's be honest, those days are long gone. So get yourself to sleep at your typical time so that you wake up feeling rested the next day. So everyone goes to bed at their typical time Saturday night. Don't change your clocks before you go to bed. On Sunday morning, everyone's going to wake at their typical wake time. So if your child typically wakes up at 6:30, that's when we're going to wake up. But as we know, the reality is that that is actually the new 5:30. But this should not be a problem because no one should be overtired yet. You all went to bed at the right time and you all got the right amount of sleep. So you're going to get up Sunday morning and now you're going to change your clocks to the new time. So you're going to change that 6:30 to a 5:30. And then it's time to prepare for Sunday naps, assuming you have a child who still naps. The only change I want you to make to your child's nap schedule is to have all the naps start 30 minutes earlier than normal. So I'm going to give an example of a child who's on a 2-nap schedule here. Let's say your child typically naps at 9:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. On Sunday, you're going to put your child down at 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. So that's the old 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. That means we're pushing our babies a little bit here on their schedule. So you put your child down at 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. and then We take what we can get with those naps. They may be a little funky, but keep them at their normal length. So cap the naps at their typical length if that's the issue. And if they're too short, just continue to forge ahead with this adjusted schedule. And then it's time to think about bedtime. And I want you to do the exact same thing for bedtime. If your child's normal bedtime is 7 p.m., you're going to put them down at 6:30 p.m. Again, that's the new 6:30, the old 7:30 p.m. By making these 30-minute shifts, you have shifted your child halfway to the new time come Sunday night. Now let's talk about Monday morning and the schedule throughout Monday. It's going to be a little hit or miss at what time your child wakes up Monday morning. Some kids are just going to adjust very quickly and they're going to wake up at their typical waking time. But others are definitely going to wake earlier than they typically would because they're kind of waking at or closer to the old schedule, which is early based on the new time. But no matter what time they actually wake up Monday morning, I want you to go back to their typical nap schedule. So using that same 2-nap example that I was just walking through, you would put your child down for their naps at the typical 9:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. on Monday. And the bedtime on Monday is going to be the typical 7 p.m. However, if your child doesn't nap well or is tired from getting less than their typical amount of night sleep the night before, then I want you to go for that extra early rescue bedtime. Putting your baby or young child to bed 30, sometimes even 45 minutes earlier than they usually would go down can really help them make up for some of their missed sleep. And it can actually help you avoid that crazy early morning wake up. I know that's counterintuitive, but it's absolutely true. So that's it. That's all I want you to do. I want you to do nothing until you wake up Sunday morning, November 6th. Then you're going to make those small tweaks on Sunday. And by Monday, I want you to go back to your child's normal schedule. And since I know this is all confusing and your nap times might not be the same as the ones I mentioned, I have gone ahead and made a simple cheat sheet for you that will allow you to fill in the typical times and the new times on how I want you to adjust on Sunday and Monday. So you can grab that cheat sheet in the show notes. There'll be a link in the show notes, or you can visit sleepandwellnesscoach.com/episode 54. That's where you're going to find this little cheat sheet. Before I wrap up, I want to briefly touch on what you should do if you have a child who's using a toddler clock or a sleep light. I also want to touch on what to do if you have a newborn who isn't yet on a consistent schedule. So first, let's talk about those clocks. If you know me, you know that I swear by toddler clocks and sleep lights, and I believe that every child over the age of 2 should have one. If your child doesn't yet have a toddler clock or light, I strongly encourage you to listen to episode 46. We'll link to it in the show notes. Now, for those of you who are currently using a toddler clock or light for your child, I want you to adjust the timing of the nap on Sunday to the typical length that you would get. And we want to start that 30 minutes earlier. Since kids with toddler clocks are just on one nap, let's talk through what that would look like with a one nap schedule on Sunday. So for example, if their typical nap time would be 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., then you're going to set that nap time on Sunday to be 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And then when you put your child to bed on Sunday night, set the wake up time for their normal wake up time. They may wake a bit earlier, but the expectation, listen to episode 46 if you're struggling with the light, the expectation would be that they follow the rule of the light and they don't get out of their bed or leave their room until the normal wake up time. And then on Monday, you're going to shift the timing of the nap to the normal nap time and wake time, and then forge ahead with typical times for bedtime on Monday. Now, for those of you who have a newborn who really isn't on a consistent nap schedule and you're thinking, well, what do I do? Because we don't even have a typical schedule. I want you to try not to worry about this time change too much. The only thing I want you to focus on is trying to shift their bedtime if you have a fairly consistent bedtime window. So try to shift that over the 2-day period. On Sunday, think about shifting that window about 30 minutes. And then come Monday, try to shift the additional 30 minutes. So you're going with the same bedtime window that you were using prior to the time change. If you can shift that bedtime window, then the rest of it is just going to naturally fall into place and get you back to where they were before. It may take a couple days for them to shift, but you're probably going off wake windows at this point, which is fine for this newborn group. So you're just going to continue to do that with the shifted bedtime window and wake time window. All right. Thank you for joining me this week. Please share this episode with a friend who's dreading the upcoming time change. And don't forget to download your free time change cheat sheet at sleepandwellnesscoach.com/episode-54. I hope that you have a really smooth transition and you end up looking back and thinking, gosh, that was no big deal. Come back and join me again here next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to How Long Till Bedtime. To learn how we can work together to improve your child's sleep, please visit sleepandwellnesscoach.com.